At the IMS meeting in Rio, there was an update of CARTITUDE-4 trial presented. And this was essentially looking at a 34-month follow-up of cilta-cel compared to standard of care. Just to remind everyone, CARTITUDE-4 was a phase 3 clinical trial that randomized patients who'd had 1 to 3 prior lines of therapy and were lenalidomide refractory to receive either standard of care, which was daratumumab, pomalidomide, and dexamethasone, or pomalidomide, Velcade, dexamethasone versus cilta-cel after a lymphodepletion chemotherapy. Now, the initial results had already been presented, which demonstrated an improvement in progression-free survival. And what was being reported here was the survival results. So at a follow-up of 34 months, there was a significant improvement in progression-free survival, as well as overall survival for cilta-cel versus standard of care. And indeed, the improvement in overall survival was quite substantial with a hazard ratio of 0.55. When we look at the subgroup analysis of this, then the survival was maintained throughout all the standard subgroups that you would expect to see. And this included high-risk disease as per cytogenetics, as well as soft tissue plasmacytomas and extramedullary disease. Now, when you look back at the updated progression-free survival analysis, this is also maintained and continues to demonstrate that improvement. And at the 34-month follow-up, we still have not achieved the median progression-free survival. The PFS is maintained across all the different subgroups, as you would expect. When we go back and now look at the updated overall response rate, it's very interesting because now patients at the 34-month follow-up have a much higher rate of CR and above responses, really demonstrating that patients who receive cilta-cel go on and deepen their responses as time goes on. So you get this further uplift in terms of CR rates. And we also see this in terms of an MRD analysis. So previously we'd reported an improvement in MRD negativity. This is further demonstrated with the uplift at the 34-month result. But again, what's very interesting here is that when you look at the 10 to the minus 6 results, you see a further improvement in MRD negativity of cilta-cel versus standard of care. And this is much more compared to the 10 to the minus 5, really demonstrating that cilta-cel is able to achieve those very deep responses, those deep MRD responses, which is probably why we're getting this improvement in survival. There was also an additional analysis which compared the CARTITUDE-4 versus the CARTITUDE-1 results. And remember, the CARTITUDE-1 was for patients with multiply relapsed refractory myeloma, whereas CARTITUDE-4 was bringing this treatment to early lines of therapy. And we showed that there is likely to be an improvement in PFS and OS for the CARTITUDE-4 when you bring things earlier on in the line of treatment. Now, there's been a lot of talk and discussion about the toxicity profile. Certainly, there were no further events in terms of cranial nerve palsy or motor neurotoxicities. What we do see is that there is a number of second primary malignancies being demonstrated. Overall, across both arms, these are reasonably balanced in terms of it's about 13% with cilta-cel and 11% for standard of care. But when you look at the hematological malignancies, there are 7 cases of hematological malignancies for cilta-cel, whereas just 1 case in the standard of care arm. Now, it's important that you put this into overall context, because with the number of patients who are being treated, actually it's still a small proportion. So just 3.5% of patients developing a secondary hematological malignancy with cilta-cel overall. So to summarize, this updated analysis of CARTITUDE-4 did demonstrate a significant improvement in overall survival for patients receiving cilta-cel compared to standard of care, and this improvement in overall survival was demonstrated across all the pre-specified subgroups, including high-risk disease and extramedullary disease. We saw the maintenance of the PFS benefit, the improvement in MRD negativity rates, particularly at 10 to the minus 6, and in terms of the safety profile, really what we're seeing is a very consistent result compared to the previous interim analysis with no new cases of motor neurotoxicity. So I think the one-off infusion of cilta-cel here clearly demonstrates an improvement in survival, and it is now considered to be a standard of care for patients at early relapse.